Spend some time in Mississauga, it's the greatest place we know. It's a great place to be living and to watch your children grow. Just sit back, relax, and watch the Credit River flow. It's where people love to live.
Hello, and thank you for joining us here on Ask a Historian. Please send in your questions to history@heritagemississauga.org as we explore the fascinating stories of Mississauga together on the program. Like, subscribe, and follow us and stay up to date on all the heritage happenings with Heritage Mississauga. As part of this program, we will be exploring memories and moments from the past 50 years with past and present civic leaders and citizens as part of the City of Mississauga's 50th anniversary. On this week's episode of Ask Historian, we are excited to be joined by City of Mississauga Ward 9 Councillor Martin Reid as we explore his personal perspectives of moments and milestones for the City of Mississauga's 50th anniversary. So, Councillor Martin Reid, thank you for joining us here on Ask a Historian with our Moments and Milestones history. I really appreciate having time to speak with us.
Man, I'm excited, so I'm ready to roll.
Awesome. First of all, let's paint the scene for yourself. What are your connections to Mississauga? When did our city become home to you?
Well, my parents moved here in 1977, Matthew. So I'm an OG. My parents were probably one of the first Black families to move to Mississauga. That there was this mass exodus, from what I understand, of people from the Don Mills area that moved to Meadowvale.
Right.
And I didn't know that, but I mean, the more I talked to people that moved here in 70, 76, 77, 78, like my parents were like, oh, I'm from Don Mills. So I don't know how they advertised it, but so they're from there originally, and they bought their first home at 5610 Montevideo Road. And I went to Settlers Green, Edenwood, then Meadowvale, and I have some friends who did the exact same career path of school.
Oh,
so yeah, so I've been there for a while.
So my kids went to a different public school or elementary school, but Edenwood and Meadowvale's in their line too. So it's
okay. Yeah, that's the lineage, man. If you live in this area, that's the way.
It really is. That's the backbone to growing up here, I think.
Yes.
So obviously Meadowvale has been home to you, and now you represent the area. I mean, that's got to be quite the career arc in your own head to think back to your youth, and here you are as the councillor.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I had to. And people remind me all the time, you're Ward 9. That's not just Meadowvale. That's Central Air Mills and Meadowvale Business Park too. So don't forget about us, because I'm a Meadowvale kid, to the core, and so I get it, and I'm not someone who moved here a few years ago and getting acquainted with my ward. I have all the memories and all the lived experience of someone who's lived in this ward since I was 2. So
well, as someone, it's an aside, but someone who calls the ward home myself, thank you. I love living here. My wife grew up here. I did not. I came what was it called? She brought me north. I came from the south. I grew up in Arundel. But
okay, yeah.
But Meadowvale, wonderful place for us to raise our kids, and she's a lifelong resident here as well. So it's it's home for many, and it's one of those communities really that multi-generational families have come to call this place home, and so you feel that around you. People have lived on our street, have been here since the 70s,
absolutely. I went away, I went to University of Waterloo, and I did my master's degree at Tyndale, which is in North Toronto, and then I lived at Pape and Danforth. And when I got married, it's like, well, we're moving back to Meadowvale, because I mean, there's nowhere else. This is where I'm going to raise my kids, right? It was just it was a no-brainer, so.
Yeah, there's magical networks here. I love the parks and trails and stuff. But anyway, we could probably talk about Meadowvale all along. But your parents moved here in 77, and put yourself into the context. I mean, Mayor Hazel is on the cusp of becoming a job. The train derailment is yet in front of them. What are some of your earliest memories and stories of life in Mississauga or life in Meadowvale?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the derailment. I wasn't even going to mention that, but my family, our extended family, lived in the Mississauga Valley area, right at Mavis. So we had, lots of family members living at our house during the derailment, because everyone got evacuated from that side of Mississauga. So, I remember that, of just our house being packed with family who had needed somewhere to live for some time while they were being evacuated from their area. So that's an early memory for me. Because that was what, 78, 79?
79, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I was 4 and I remember that. Right. So yeah, but yeah, in terms of memories of the area, like it's, I remember like riding your bikes, and and like our adventures would be just, our parents didn't know where we were, but they knew where we were, right? Because like
Yeah.
we were on our bikes, we were on the bike trails. You're right, like you mentioned, Mississauga and Meadowville has this network of paths that you don't have to cross the street. Like there's underpasses and there's overpasses, and you can get from north, south, east, and west in Meadowville and not have to cross the street. So our adventures would be like riding our bikes to a far off park, right? So we go to Plowman's Park, or we go to Lake Aquitaine and find like the wood park, and we play wood tag there and ride somewhere else. And you know what I mean? So like my memories of just being able to be free on these trails to explore.
Right.
So now, as a counselor, when we start talking about bike trails and protected bike paths and stuff, part of me is like, I understand that and I want that. But I also remember what the multi-use trails look like. And I noticed like for a parent to have their 10, 11, 12-year-old kid want to be able to ride their bike as far as they can and know that they don't have to cross the street
Yeah.
and know that they can be safe riding with their friends. So there's a different context for Meadowville when you start to talk about active transportation and bikes and stuff, because I know that those bike trails are still there, and I want our kids today to know that there's a whole network of trails that you could explore.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think Meadowville, I mean, we could turn this into a Meadowville podcast
it's
or
a totally
program.
mental podcast.
But I really think Meadowville's got a magical thing that's really not elsewhere in the city for the most part, in that
Right.
interconnected trail network. These big
Yep.
parks that are connected to each other, like you said, you can ride from I don't know, Meadowville Town Center through Lake Aquitaine down to Lake Wabakane and so on. It's just a really neat
Yep.
network of trails.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so those are the early memories, and for me, when I get into like after I finished my degree and my first job in the area, well, actually, I worked downtown at a social work setting for the Salvation Army, and then when I moved back to Meadowville, I started working at the dam drop-in center in the Meadowville Town Center, when the Meadowville Town Center had 2 floors and it was upstairs,
When it was indoor.
when it was indoor, all that stuff, right by the food court where all the all the teenagers would come in.
Yeah.
And one of my earliest memories working there was Pat Sato as the city councillor. And this nonprofit that would be struggling from times and we'd be short on money or we'd need a new space because the mall is being renovated. And she would show up with a check, or she would show up with a connection, or she would show up with someone who she told the story of the dam and the work that they're doing for young people. And now she's coming to save the day.
Right.
So it'd be like Pat Sato, she found us a check for 5,000 from a company, or she spoke to the business owners and they gave us a lease free spot for the next 10 months while they're doing the renovation, or she was able to do things to continue the work. So this drop in is 27 years old or so now,
Right.
and is still running, and largely in part because of the work that Pat Sato did, amplifying the message of their good work to other parties. And from that time, I was like, I would love to do this job.
Right. I mean, the dam does such incredible work, a safe and inclusive space. I know friends of my daughter have visited the space as well.
Yeah,
The new space. I don't know how new it is, but I know it's not in the mall anymore.
yeah,
But
it's a couple iterations later. Yeah.
but I mean, those are community building blocks, really. I mean, you think about the
Right.
connections that people make there and how that supports them and their journeys, and
Mhm.
such an invaluable source of I don't know what pride and connection
Absolutely.
within the city and support within the city. So
Yeah,
well, I
absolutely.
mean, we're doing a hat tip here, but we can't. We have to give credentials to the dam and the work that they do. So
100%.
Pat Sato is a great segue into kind of that the personal highlights, maybe perhaps some of the people that have
Mhm.
helped shape not only your journey, but in your mind, the identity of this thing called Mississauga.
Sure.
What are some of the people that jump out at you? And we will be reaching out to Pat Sato as part of this program as well. So,
Amazing. Yeah. So no, yeah, Pat Sato is one of them for sure. And just my career path by reaching back out to her and saying, I want to follow you. I want to do what you do. Can you mentor me? And her saying yes. That over the last 3 years, 4 years now, That's really impacted me. But that did start in 1999, 2000. So that's 20 years in the waiting for her to retire so I could get this gig. Right?
You got the long
So
game in mind.
yeah, I was playing the long game there. I was like, one day. Um, so yeah, so that's but the other person is Mr. Arnold E. Ford, who was the principal at Meadowvale Secondary School. He is the first Black principal in the Peel region. And if any of you out there has watched Lean on Me with Joe Clark, that's what this guy's like. Just hardcore. I was afraid of him when I was in school. I can't honestly say that I sat down and had a conversation with him. I just tried to just do the right thing. So I never had to cross paths with this guy. But at the same time, when you see strong leadership, you respect strong leadership.
Right. And so he was impactful in your life in a passive way, I guess, or a presence way.
Yes, in a presence way, definitely in a presence way. And now he was like a coach of a basketball team. Like I was on the football team, so we had different coaches, and Mr. Hart and some of the teachers there that were on the football team were great. But he was the leader. Like there's no question.
Right.
He was the man who was in charge, and he set the tempo. He tolerated like it. There was a respect that he had. And I know that my friends who also were captains of teams and stuff, like he really poured into them. And to this day, the number of people that I know that are teachers because of Mr. Ford, that and they're like strong leaders,
I mean, that's probably the finest legacy.
Yeah.
I follow one of the Meadowvale group Facebook groups, and being a resident up here, and I know there's a lot of talk about Mr. Ford recently on that, and just in positive memories of the impact that he had, and maybe again sheer through sheer presence. Although there are a few stories of how intimidating he was.
Oh man, yeah, he doesn't play like, and that was it. And I think that's the thing that made like it was fear and respect, right? Because he was fair. I've shared the story before of how one time our football team, we won a big game and everyone went to Pizza Hut, and then it was a dine and dash where everyone ran and no one paid the check, and he pulled aside a bunch of players and went down, gave them money, made us go down, apologized to Pizza Hut, paid the check out of his pocket, you know what I mean, like that sort of thing. Where just like, here's a teaching moment, here's a correction moment, and it was fair, like like that's the sort of the thing that stays with you. And and his name pops up every Black History Month as did you know, fun fact, first principal was Arnold Ford, and he was in Meadowvale Secondary School, and and the things that he did. So he was a great impact in my life. And there's people that have that direct impact, like touch, and there's others that have an impact just by like the way that they live their life. Right. With that integrity and that leadership, and he is it. So
I was going to ask though, as a young aspiring Black leader of like yourself, how important of a role to see another person, another Black leader having that impact on the community it must have been for you.
Well, and this is the thing, Matthew. Think about it this way: we saw that before we thought about leadership. We saw that before we thought about the impact that would have. So you're walking into a high school and you're 13, 14, 15, and then that's all like, I mean, I know a lot of people who for the first time are seeing a strong Black leader in their 20s and in their 30s.
Right.
Like the most formative years, I just had that. So for me to see myself in a leadership role, it's like, sure, I can, I've seen it. My dad's a strong leader, as a strong Black man. He's in my life. I see like, my dad's friends would pull me aside and say like, you got to finish school. And the old adage of, work twice as hard to get half as far. Like, I challenge that, at times, but the reality is that that's what we grew up listening to. Right. So you see people who were leaders and engineers and doctors and pastors and principals, but they were just always around me. So I think that really formed me by allowing me to see that it's possible, from day one. It wasn't like someone had to change my mind about that. It's like I always had these leaders around me.
But personally empowering too, I would imagine. Maybe without knowing it was.
without
Yeah,
knowing. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
So
yeah.
no, incredible individual, Mr. Ford, and I know he's left a legacy behind him through just the sheer number of stories I've heard. And we've written an article on him for past in the past at Heritage Mississauga, but certainly impactful in the community in which he resided and or which he lived and worked, and the youth that he connected
Yes,
with, and uh,
yes,
remarkable. Now think about. I know I've seen a heck of a lot of change in my life, and so it's
yes.
you've lived in this community, Meadowville, most of your life. How are some of the changes you've seen, the evolution you've seen over time? I mean, we're looking back over 50 years of development or evolution here in the city of Mississauga during 2024, but
Mhm.
just some of the changes, some of the highlights of change, I guess, over time, things that you've seen and have evolved in your community.
Absolutely. I love to see the change. I've seen like seeing Square One grow into like a regional mall, or seeing Air Mills Town Center, or even Meadowville Town Center go from like a clock tower to more of an out parcel space. Like there's some things that were happening that I wasn't aware in terms of the master plan for the city. But I like the direction it's going in. I like the fact that we are, we're getting more like transit, and we're making it more accessible. That's fascinating too, for just accessibility for a moment.
Right.
That being very central in terms of how we build things, and we're thinking about everybody with the way we build, and just accessible, the codes and things like that. So it's just, I don't know. I just really like how progressive our city is. I like its transit. I like the buildings. I like how there's a sense, it's, our downtown core city center is just such a vibrant area. Like, as much as we talk about how much I love Meadowville, I can see myself, buying a condo in the Square One area to retire in, so I can just walk everywhere. It's like there's just a sense of, it's growing quickly, and as a counselor, I think, okay, well, how do we allow it to grow this quickly, and have all these different world class things happening here, but then also give people that feeling that I had when I was a kid, where you're just free to grow and to explore, and to say one day I'm going to buy a house in this area. You know what I mean? That's like, it's growing fast,
Yeah,
and there's a lot of things that make this area attractive, but sadly at the same time, affordability is a major issue.
it is.
How do we allow, how do we allow our seniors who've lived here their whole lives to age in place? How do we make it so that their kids and their grandkids could buy homes close to their home, on in lake, corridor, on or one of these streets, like they can, right? So
Right.
I want to see the city continue to grow and be its own city, its own identity, and not be in the shadow of Toronto, or not be, it's when I played football. Just on a side note, my when I was at Waterloo playing, my coach used to say this line all the time. He said, "Men, you got to be your own man."
So
And
Mississauga, you got to be your own city. Is that?
you Mississauga, you got to be your own Mississauga. Mississauga, you got to be your own Mississauga. Like, you have your own identity. You have the things that make you strong. You don't have to be
Yeah.
anybody else. You don't have to. You don't have to make your twos in terms of your strengths a three, but we got to make your eights in terms of strength. In terms of your strengths, a nine or a 10.
Right.
What are we good at? What are we strong at? Let's be our own city from an identity perspective. That's not a regional,
Yeah.
dissolution conversation. Just like, be our own city, be our own identity. And I think
Yeah.
that's, we're finding that year over year.
In a way, I think that's always been the evolution of Mississauga to looking back over 50 years or even longer, this idea of becoming itself, like
Yes.
it's something that drives us, I think, and drives many of our municipal leaders I know. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. I've been saying this on my little talks this year. Like, I'm 49. Like, the city's 50. Like, there's a sense of maturity
yeah.
that comes with this age, where, the way that we look at our racial relationships, the way that we look at our faith community, the way that we look at diversity and equity, and all these different things have changed over the years. Hiring processes within the city itself, like, our fire department, our police, all these different things. Like, we have leaders who are doing great work. We have a female fire chief,
Yep.
and there's people that still push back against that. And I've had conversations with residents that they look at me and they don't look at her when they're having a conversation. I'm like, she's the expert, not me. You know what I mean? Like old school. Like, I mean,
Yep.
but we're evolving and we're moving and we're progressing. But then there's also some old thoughts out there too, right?
Well, there's an idea in history that always the evolution of ideas is about a generation behind in acceptance. So
Yes,
you kind of race forward, but then wait for everyone to catch up in a way. So it's
yes, yeah,
but I can imagine, like you were talking about, just the evolution of the community, aging in place, I think was the term that you used, and
yes,
again that idea of multi-generational Mississauga in a sense. Uh, Striking that balance must be the continual challenge. I imagine that
yes,
moving forward but not leaving behind is
right.
I can't imagine that's easy.
Well, yeah, it's definitely not, and and within my area, just the current events, with the Chartwell building being sold and seniors being evicted. I mean, there's so many levels of that being wrong.
Yep.
The one that breaks my heart the most is knowing that these are people who have lived in this area, grew up in this area, raised their kids in this area, and thought that they could, jump over to the retirement residence in the area. And if they can't stay in their home anymore, at least they're still in the community where their grandkids could walk over and visit them. So the tragedies of the lack of rent and the payments and having to move out, all those different things are all bad. And then on top of that, people like myself that went off to school and came back to buy a house in Meadowville to stay here and live their last days here are now being forced out. That is it's heartbreaking,
Yeah.
beyond heartbreaking. When you understand the community like you and I do, you realize that it's not just I'm losing my house, it's like I'm losing my neighborhood, I'm losing
Yeah.
my community,
My network, my friend network as you
my
get older.
network.
And yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Speaking of personal and the Chartwell, my mom was a resident there for a number of years, and it was a godsend for us just having her close to home. It just hopefully again we find that balance in
Yes.
the community as we go forward in time. Perhaps I know we're people's lives are affected by all of these decisions, but at the same time you're like, well, maybe the closing of one opens a door for another opportunity, and
Yes.
we'll have to see. I know it doesn't happen overnight, but hopefully there's something that comes positive out of this.
Yes. That's
So
all. Yeah.
Mississauga, you shouldn't have to leave the city to if you call it home, right? You should be that option to stay home. Um,
Yes.
so you mentioned the dam. I understand, or at least I believe it's near and dear to your heart. And but what are
Mhm.
some of the other organizations and groups or clubs that you've been involved with in the city over time that connect to that idea of a sense of place and a pride of place?
Yeah, so I mean, like, the church community has been huge. Like we grew up going to a church that's off of Dixie and Dundas area. Deeper Life was the name. Now it's Kingdom Covenant Center. So Pat
Yep.
Francis, and that, like, also a strong woman leader. So through my high school years, she was a great influence in the people in that church. So that church community was huge for me. Another interesting community for me that was impactful was the Mississauga Football League.
Okay.
And right, so and they're, I don't know what they're called now, because I see the Huskies and some other teams now, so it's folded or it's evolved into something else. But for my parents who moved to this area, and they were who came from Jamaica via the United States, so they were just trying to keep food on the table and keep the lights on and stuff. So they weren't registering us in a lot of sports growing up. And I walked into the Meadowville Community Center one day, and they had football registrations there, and I signed myself up for it. And then I went home and told my parents that I wanted to play, because obviously I had no money to actually pay for this registration.
Yep.
And they said sure. So, and that was it. So I started playing Mississauga Football League for the Stallions and the Mustangs, and I fell in love with it. And I found the community there, and I found like coaches and people that were so supportive of me, and I went on to play in high school, and then I was all Canadian, had an opportunity to play University of Waterloo, and like those doors were opened by me walking into a community center, by seeing some community partner that just had a table there, and next thing you know, I'm part of a community, I'm part of a massive community. And how many people come to our community from another country and they're just trying to get plugged in and don't know what to do, and then they find the Mississauga Monarchs basketball, or they find some chess club or a reading club or Toastmasters or whatever. Like, there's so many community partners that are there that for me, when I was talking about my campaign, I used the word support, amplify, and connect. And in the same way that Pat Sato amplified the message of the dam, me in this role now, I'm always trying to amplify the message of these nonprofits and of these clubs and these groups that are doing great work, so that we can connect our residents and newcomers and those to it, and they can find life. I was so alive when I was playing football. In the same way my kids, when my stepdaughter found that same identity in the theater. Like, we have the Meadowville Theater.
Yeah.
Like, and that's probably arguably one of the best community theaters in the GTA. Like, it's a world-class facility, and it's a best kept secret at the same time. So I'm trying to let people know that, you know what I mean? Like, man, I saw Into the Woods there, or I was crying laughing. Like, it's just hilarious. It's so well done. And it's like, people don't have to leave Mississauga. They don't have to leave Meadowvale to get good theater.
Yeah, no, it's I've seen a few there over the years. My daughter is into drama as well, and taking some summer programs through there. So yeah, it is a gem, and it's a hidden gem, really. It's how do you hide something in plain sight? But it's
it's so big too, right? Yeah, exactly. People don't know it's there. Like, if you walk across the street to that complex right on Montevideo, I can guarantee you, like, 95% of people have never been in that theater.
No, I agree 100%. So, I mean, there's a good segue into another question here. I mean, there you talk about landmarks that are important, or things that kind of help physically shape the city to you.
Yes.
A couple of spaces that are important to you, and why?
One of the most important pieces are buildings that would be the libraries. And the community center. So when Meadowville Community Center and the Meadowville Library, it's probably the busiest in the city. It's definitely my favorite in the city. And for me growing up, I've gone through 3 iterations of that Meadowville Community Center, right? So I remember when it was a small, tiny space, and they made it bigger, and then they tore the whole thing down, and now they made it the monstrosity that it is. And it's a community. It's a village. It's like a little town hall, and so many things are happening there. And Aaron Meadows too, like that library, the volume coming out of there because of Gonzaga, high school being connected to it. But yeah, like those buildings, like I remember just as a kid going for swimming lessons there, or signing out books, and like sitting there for book readings with my mom. Like, my grandmother used to take my brother and I there. Like, I mean, like, it's such an integral part of the community, and there's so much potential there. If it was open more, it would be packed. If it was open 20 hours a day, it would be packed 20 hours a day.
Yep.
Like, university libraries are open early and they're open late. And so for the newcomers who want to come and print a resume after work, and then they see it's closed at 5:30 on a Friday, I'm like, come on, like, there's so much more we could be doing with it, because I know how rich it was for me, and I want everyone to have that same experience of being rich and valuable for them. So community centers are where it's at. Like, those are the game changers for our city. Even though they don't make money, they're probably the most valuable asset that we have.
Well, and they're the things that, they have a constant interaction with the people that live in the neighborhood. There's so much of a walking crowd that uses them as I see it as a hub, not only for my kids' programs, but just that community connection space. I mean, you're looking for facilities and rentals and all that sort of stuff. It's a logical place to go to. It's close to home, and they're all over the city. So they're remarkable facilities. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you kind of our sum up here, if you will, our last question is, we're not in the game of prognostication, although perhaps maybe you are more than I am. But if you look at kind of over the 50 years and the next 50 years, what are some of the wishes or hopes you have for the city of Mississauga?
That's a good question. Like, I like the tangent that we're on right now. I love riding my bike. I love to see our cycling infrastructure set up in a way where people can ride from one end of the city to the other. Like, e-bikes are great. So, for people to be able to just explore the whole city, like I explored Meadowville when I was a kid, is something that makes me smile, to think that I can, you can get on Burnhamthorpe and take it right to Toronto, right? Like, like those, like, so those sort of things, like our LRT, the stuff that makes the city its own city. I could see us just completing this and not having mindsets of keeping it the way it was, at the expense of where it could be. Like there's so much potential that is there. And I was in New York City last week for the urban planning leadership conference. And I was afforded an opportunity to take a tour of South Bronx and look at some of their affordable housing, and to go to Bed-Stuy, which is like a part of Brooklyn, New York, and see a revitalization project. And this one project had, like, a grocery store and affordable housing and a bank and a museum and everything in one area. And they had to tear it down because the building was built in 1968 and it's leaky and they can't use rooms and stuff. So they're at a spot where they're struggling to figure out, how do we keep the history and the richness of the memories and give the people a better product that's going to serve them better. And Mississauga is kind of at that crossroads when you look at places like the Lakeshore. People had houses that are older than the city themselves, and places like Meadowvale, which is a master plan community, which they did a really good job with. How do you make those better without taking away the richness of its history?
Right.
So so I feel like Mississauga is in that place too. Like when our LRT is completed and we have the loop, when we have all day go service from Meadowvale and from Lisgar and from Streetsville, when we have like all these high rises in the downtown core and some infill that's done really well, and fourplexes that are great so people can age in place. When all those pieces are done or are close to being done, and people can see what the final product is going to look like, I think people are going to be really excited. But at the same time, as a city councillor with a counseling degree, I'm a counselor and a counselor. I recognize that listening is important and change management are important. So answering this question is hard for me because it doesn't matter what I say. It really comes down to, how do I manage the change around what I say? Right. My vision doesn't matter as much as managing people's expectations around getting to that place, because we all want to see change. We all know what's going to happen. We disagree on how we're going to get to that change.
Yeah, you want to have a controlling hand on the lever, so to speak, as the change evolves,
Yes.
right? Well,
I want people to own the change.
Right.
That's it. I want people to feel like I'm part of this change. I'm not dictating it from the council chambers. You see it. You had a say in it. You were involved in that process. So I want our city to grow together.
I think that's a fabulous vision to have, and I know that you put the actions into words. You have the community open houses, and people can come and talk to you, and you're always approachable. And heck, I see you out at a lot of events, so I know you're out and around too. So what I'm heartened with the most is you love this place, and decisions you're making, whether they be easy ones or hard ones, are coming from a position of love and pride of the place you live in. And I think that's that bodes well for the future of Mississauga, with having leaders that start from a place of love and a desire for fulfillment in their communities. So
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, with that, I just want to say thank you for wandering down some milestones and moments in the city's 50th anniversary, and happy 50th to you as a councillor and to the city in which you serve. And again, thank you for spending time with us here.
Appreciate it. Thank you. And thanks for listening, everybody.